The night air was sharp, thick with salt from the nearby Pacific, as the black Range Rover purred quietly up the long private driveway. Behind the wheel sat a man not accustomed to slowing down. Not for traffic, not for time, not even for death. Inside the back seat, nestled in a silk-lined crate, lay a Labrador named Echo. His fur was still warm, his breath long gone. The man's eyes flicked up to the rear-view mirror. Not a tremble, not a blink, just resolve. He was a billionaire. One of those. The kind who built empires between breakfast meetings and ruined competitors by lunch. But Echo had been there before the jets, the headlines, the digital thunder. When his world was made of ramen noodles, red ink, and restless nights. It was that dog who sat beside him, tail wagging like it believed in a tomorrow he couldn't yet afford. Tonight, that loyalty demanded a miracle. At the gates of the facility, there were no signs, just scanners, steel, and silence. It looked more like a classified weapons lab than anything to do with pets. Inside, the air was 23 degrees colder. White floors, white walls, the smell of sterilization and ambition. A woman in a lab coat met him with a clipboard and a reverent nod. "We're ready for Echo," she said. They weren't saving his life. Not yet. They were preserving it. The billionaire didn't speak, just handed her the crate, as though passing off a piece of his soul. She took it like sacred cargo. This was VitaCore, the world's first luxury cryogenic pet preservation institute, a place where science danced with obsession, where grief was measured not in tears, but in millions of dollars wired from offshore accounts. Where you didn't let go, you paused goodbye. Down beneath the facility, where no windows existed and time seemed to hold its breath, the real work happened. In a subterranean vault chilled by rivers of liquid nitrogen, hundreds of chambers stood like futuristic sarcophagi. Each one bore only a name. No dates, no tombstones, just the promise of a second chance. It started as a whisper. Tech billionaires, celebrities, oil tycoons. Rumors swirled that a Saudi prince had preserved his hawk, that a Russian oligarch had 3 wolves on ice in Iceland. Then came Elon's shepherd, Titan. Then Oprah's golden retriever. Then the dominoes fell. Suddenly it wasn't strange. It was inevitable. And now Echo would join them. The lab techs moved like monks around a relic. No sound except for the hiss of coolant and the soft clack of carbon fiber instruments. Echo was gently lifted into a cryopod lined with biofoam, his body injected with a specialized cryoprotectant to prevent cellular damage. His blood replaced. His heartbeat irrelevant. His future uncertain but possible. A whisper of nitrogen rolled out as the vault opened. Inside, an eerie kind of stillness. Dozens of capsules. A Persian cat that had once walked the halls of Versailles. A Doberman with a $200,000 Instagram following. A Maine Coon whose human had spent more on her annual checkups than most families earn in a decade. This wasn't just preservation. This was the luxury of never losing what you love. The billionaire stood there, one hand against the frosted glass, heart caught somewhere between grief and gamble. He wasn't just freezing a body. He was freezing a promise. And not just for himself. Because somewhere in Switzerland, a parallel project was in motion. Asterisk Project Lazarus Asterisk, they called it. Funded by 5 of the top 10 tech titans. Its goal? Digital resurrection. Mapping the neural DNA of consciousness. Rebuilding a memory bank. Reconstructing thought. One day, they said they'd download the soul. They had already replicated a rat's fear response. A chimp's recognition. The whispers now weren't about if. They were about how soon. And this man, this billionaire, wasn't content to sit and wait for nature to work its brutal rhythms. He had rewritten the rules of business. Now, he would rewrite the rules of life and death. For Echo, for himself, for the millions like him who'd loved something that couldn't outlive them. He didn't believe in superstition. He believed in science. And he believed in options. Outside, the sun was beginning to bleed into the sky, coloring the world in soft rose and gold. On the horizon, you could almost forget that somewhere beneath your feet, time had been stopped like a paused movie scene. Dogs, cats, birds, even horses, suspended in their final moments, waiting to be called back. He got back into the Range Rover. Alone now. No soft panting in the back seat. No wet nose against his shoulder at the red light. But he didn't feel grief. He felt conviction. Echo wasn't gone. Echo was waiting. Waiting for the world to catch up. Waiting for resurrection not as myth, but method. This was the future the rich were building, where farewells were delayed indefinitely, where goodbye was just a temporary setting, where love, real, irrational, unconditional love, became too valuable to bury, because in the new world the elite were shaping, not even death is permanent anymore.